As we can see in this generated rendering of debug data, the 2022 Rockstar disclosures provided a systemic teardown of a software architecture. The leaks expose the exact engineering frameworks powering the game engine. The Grand Theft Auto franchise has historically operated on a philosophy of frictionless, arcade-style freedom. Players pull weapons from invisible pockets, hijack cars instantly, and outrun spawning police units. The developmental debug logs reveal an engine built on strict physical constraints. The data shows a framework designed to restrict player agency through deliberate mechanical limitations. This heavy mechanical framework is deployed directly into the modern setting of Leonida and Vice City, utilizing the urban sprawl as a testbed. Dropping a bright, high-speed metropolitan environment into mechanics ported directly from an 1899 cowboy simulator requires a complete recalibration of how the player moves and reacts. The actors forced to navigate this rigid state machine are Jason and Lucia. Their historical Bonnie and Clyde dynamic anchors the narrative within this simulated ecosystem. Grand Theft Auto 6 ports the hyper-physicalized Rage engine from Red Dead Redemption 2 into a modern setting, applying late 19th century simulation weight to contemporary urban chaos. By reverse engineering the leaked data, we can map out the game's structural logic by analyzing three core pillars: the physical layer, the contextual tool systems, and the state machine AI. Replacing simple abstraction with systemic specialization forces players to calculate the mechanical cost of every interaction. Every decision in the game now carries a distinct, unavoidable physical consequence. We start at the bedrock physics layer. Locomotion is now entirely weight-based, requiring characters to build momentum before reaching a sprint and physically decelerate when coming to a stop. The data confirms new tactical movement inclusions designed for this heavier engine. Players can now swap shoulder perspectives while aiming, grapple during hand-to-hand combat, and use their equipped weapons to physically shield their faces from incoming fire. This diagram illustrates the overhauled variable height cover system. The character rig dynamically scales its crouch height to match the exact height of the adjacent geometric block, allowing the player to slide along the geometry and return fire while maintaining physical protection. This commitment to physical space extends to the player's inventory. The invisible arsenal, the ability to pull rocket launchers and assault rifles from thin air, has been removed. This schematic of the new weapon wheel highlights the strict new limitations. Players are restricted to a primary slot, a secondary slot, and a tool slot. Any primary weapon, like a rifle, must be physically slung across the character's back. Navigating the world with these restrictions utilizes a dual protagonist architecture. Players can seamlessly switch between solo control or engage dual control to maneuver both Jason and Lucia simultaneously through a hostile environment. This diagram maps the new Eagle Eye system. By projecting a visual cone, the player can highlight specific environmental nodes, like CCTV cameras and safes, prioritizing environmental casing and detailed robbery preparation before a single shot is fired. Movement, combat, and inventory management require heavy physical commitments in the game world. A simple control input now triggers a complex sequence of physical animations and state changes. The application of this friction extends from the player character out into the broader environment of the Leonida keys. By abandoning generic one-size-fits-all interaction buttons, the game forces players to interact with the world through specialized mechanics. Accessing the environment now requires state-dependent tools, replacing single-button prompts with conditional logic, particularly during vehicle hijacking. This logic fork diagram breaks down the new hijacking mechanics. Bypassing a modern luxury car requires an immobilizer bypass tool. Older models require a slim gem, and players must deploy tracker jammers to counter GPS tracking in high-end vehicles. The loot and robbery systems operate under the exact same physical logic. Loose items and cash must now be physically stowed into duffel bags, enforcing strict carrying capacity limits on the player and forcing them to prioritize their targets. Even crowd control is managed through physical constraints. Players must secure hostages manually using specialized items like zip ties to maintain order during a heist. Stealth and management mechanics have also been physicalized. Players can now grapple, carry, or throw the heavy, dead weight of bodies, navigating proximity-based UI prompts to clear areas securely. Interacting with the world now demands managing specific tool states and carrying capacities. This design purposefully slows down the pace of play, making the simulation far more deliberate. The ultimate consequence of this slower, methodical pacing is the overhauled law enforcement AI. In previous iterations, police aggression relied on an instant spawn model. Law enforcement units simply materialized on the road directly behind the player the moment a crime was registered. This logic tree maps the time until cops dispatch timer. A crime trigger feeds into a filling circular timer, which accelerates if CCTV detects the player. Instead of rushing interiors, police AI units now lock into a physical perimeter radius to negotiate. Players can exploit this deeper systemic integration by accessing police onboard computers directly via a dedicated D-pad menu in stolen cruisers. This systemic tracking extends inward to the AI governing the protagonists themselves. The data logs reveal dedicated partnership system variables monitoring Jason and Lucia. The system tracks both romantic partnership and pragmatic partnership states. These variables function as an internal honor system, dynamically adjusting dialogue and narrative outcomes based on the player's actions. AI and NPCs no longer function as isolated temporary instances. They operate as a continuous, reactive state machine network, tracking every variable in the environment. The overarching design philosophy exposed by these leaked modules is friction by design. These systems compound aggressively during a robbery. The strict physical capacity limits of the duffel bag force players to spend more time inside the targeted location to secure their payout. This diagram illustrates how physical time costs lock together. Time spent loading the duffel connects to the police dispatch timer ticking down outside. Finally, if the player lacks the correct immobilizer bypass, the escape vehicle becomes a liability, jamming the entire sequence. Rockstar is shifting away from the arcade abstractions that defined previous entries. By integrating specific, state-based physical constraints into every layer of the experience, the simulation moves from simple sandbox freedom toward a rigid, interlocking system of consequences.